Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone here and have a couple introductions on that before we introduce the candidates here. We'll go through a few of the rules that have been shared with us. First off, AFACT is a nonpartisan organization, and this forum is intended to be informational and educational only. The purpose of this forum is to make sure our families and friends get the information that they need about the issues that impact them. And so we're hoping to get some good information so people can make some good decisions. We know that there's good local leadership, and this matters to all of us. And we hope that people have open minds and listen and make decisions based on what they hear. And for the candidates, I just want to remind you, many of the people in the audience are what we call super voters. And super voters never miss an election, so listen to what they have to say. And they may look mild-mannered and quiet on that, but they do not miss the opportunity to raise their voice in the ballot box on that. So track that down, many are super voters. With that, I'd like to introduce the assembly candidates, and starting with Patrick Flynn, District 1, Seat B. Mark Martinson, District 1, Seat B. Sharon Gibbons, District 2, Seat C. Bill Starr, District 2, Seat C. Bill Isley, District 3, Seat C. Tim Steele, District 3, Seat B. L.B. Gray Jackson, District 4, Seat G. Pete Peterson. District 5, Seat I, Mao Tosi. District 5, Seat I, Adam Tromley. District 5, Seat I, Bruce Dowery. District 6, Seat K, Bill Evans. District 6, Seat K, and Pete Nolan, District 6, Seat K. So please welcome them here. Introduce the leaders that are going to be asking questions real quickly. They're sitting in this row here. Jane Braun, Dana Graham, Ariel Baines, Jane AFACT. And also, we're honored to have with us some of the candidates for the Anchorage School Board. And while they won't be up here and we won't be able to grill them with questions on that, I'd like to introduce Pat Higgins, Seat C. Pat, sir, so raise your hand. Thank you. Dean Williams, Seat C. Don Smith, Seat D. Cameron Perez Perdilla, Seat D. And like I said, we'll have an opportunity following all the questions in the back of the reception for people to ask them questions and get to meet them. Okay, the rules for the forum is our questioners will have 3 questions for the candidates. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to answer each question. And because of the large number of candidates on that, we're going to have to restrict the questions just to the questioners on that. Unfortunately, we don't have unlimited time for so many candidates on that. And I must tell you, I'm really pleased that you all showed up. That's impressive. That's really questions, we're going to go from right to left, and then reverse it and go the last question. So we'll call your name as we do that, so hopefully that will. We have a timekeeper right there. We'll give the candidates a 15-minute notice when it's getting close to the end of your time, and then ring a bell when your time is ended. So please don't take any more time than you're allowed. They told me I'm allowed to throw anybody out, and so if somebody comes in and takes all the time on that, we might have to do that. But seriously on that, with so many candidates, we've got to keep the time frame. As we mentioned, there's a reception following this forum on that, so we hope that you all will stay at those and meet people. That would be really good. We ask the candidates in the audience to be respectful at all times, is what we would expect, and that if you could please hold any applause to any answers to the end of the forum, so we can get more of the questions in and more of the answers. And then at the end, we'll have a closing prayer. So in the next AFACT meeting will be an evaluation of this meeting. participation. So we'll go ahead and get started. Maybe we'll start with the questioners. And the first person that will ask to answer will be Patrick Flynn. And so question number 1.
I'm Katrina Davis, and I'm with Bethel Chapel. In AFACT's efforts to address concerns in the community, many of our members have experienced a disconnection with public officials and representatives, leading to feelings of distrust. Most recently, on the question of public process, by that we mean improving citizen participation in the city of Anchorage, AFACT leaders have difficulty getting anyone to respond, with the exception of one person.
I'm Jane Braun from St. Mark Lutheran, and for the question, our first question, a recent citizens task force made recommendations to improve public process, and but only some of those recommendations were included in the ordinance that was passed unanimously in February. If elected to office, will you re-examine the unfinished recommendations from the task force with the purpose of enhancing public participation and trust? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great question. My name's Patrick Flynn. By the way, Julie, I see know a lot of people out here. Mild manner does not describe them. The public process is very important to me. For those of you who have the misfortune of following assembly activities, you probably know I'm sort of the self-appointed parliamentarian. Frequently sort of pointing out, here's how we need to follow the process to make sure we're doing the people's business correctly. I really appreciate the efforts of the task force. I think we passed a good ordinance to refocus the Assembly's attention on making sure that everyone has a chance to be heard. If there's a mistake, I didn't vote for it, by the way, in cutting off public testimony a year ago. So we need to do a better job at that. Happy to take another look at some of the other recommendations to ensure that we are doing our best to ensure that we're earning your trust, because we don't get it by proclamation, we get it because you give it to us.
Hi, I'm Mark Martinson, my name. Anyway, I guess I've noticed in government, state, federal, and local level that business interests often get more attention than individuals. And so if elected, I would definitely try and change that to where the offices aren't just bought by people, but are actually interested in what the people have to say and the livability of the city, and not just the money-making ability of the city. And so, to that end, I would be open to the things in Anchorage that make it more livable rather than just more profit-making. Thank you.
Sharon Gibbons, 2C. I think it is very crucial and very important that as a representative we do just that. I'm representing the constituents in our separate districts. In that, it is very important that we hear what the constituents are saying, that we may be able to then follow up and give a report when we are in the assembly.
I'm Bill Starr, and I did vote for that ordinance change, and I think we're catching up. There's a certain sense that we can be all things to most with the new electronics and the emails and the Facebook and all that. So I think we're getting better at it. One of the recommendations was the listing, a sign-up sheet perhaps, and some of the crowd control stuff as we take public testimony. But I think there's just a general sense that you want an assembly person that reaches out on his own as well. I feel proactive in my community with the calls back and the email returns and sort of make a personal pledge that that's the intention as well as the fact gathering on the topic. That's my reputation. I think we'll bring it forward. So the commitment to continue to better the process, absolutely. I'm there. We did a nice first step. I think we listened. And the idea that we can always get better is where it's at. But I don't shy away from the dialogue. I never have. And so the accessibility and the ability to be educated on the topic is a two-way street. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Phil Isley, And when I go to the assembly meetings, I'm usually doing the testifying instead of being on the other side. And sometimes when I finish, I kind of feel like there's just a dead stare there, and they haven't really heard what I said. And then I go to a lot of community council meetings and different other meetings where our public process goes. And from my observation, I found that during these meetings, when they do that, they keep holding them until all the opposition dies, and then they do what they had planned to begin with. But if you come and I get elected and you testify, at the very least, I'll acknowledge that I heard.
Tim Steele, running for West Anchorage seat 3E. I was elected last year after the infamous event that ultimately established the task force. Task force did wonderful work. I attended most of their meetings, including some of their public presentations at night. And the level of discussion, the level of credibility of the people on that committee was awesome. We're in the process of implementing it. We don't have everything. Some of it is a costly measure in terms of electronics in the boardroom. This is going to have to come out of a budget, but we heard people, and most of the items will be introduced, if not all of them. So stand by.
Thank you. Listening to our constituents is one of my pet peeves. I think it's very, very important to listen and respond. And I am honored to say that I was, along with Mr. Traney, spearheaded with the support from our chairman, even establishing a citizens task force on public hearings. And then there was a rules committee that was established. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. And that rules committee worked with the citizens task force, and they did a fabulous job. They had public hearings. They made recommendations to the rules committee. The rules committee wrote the recommendations to the assembly, and we were able to implement some really good changes that allows our public to be heard and respected. And it's a start. We haven't solved the problem totally 100%, and I'm not sure if we ever will, but it's a really great start. And when I'm re-elected to the Assembly, I'm going to continue to listen to my constituents and you and this community, and I'm going to continue to look at ways to make your ability to be heard in a respectful way again. Thank you.
I'm Pete Peterson, running for Assembly in East Anchorage. Obviously, I think there was a problem last year when they voted to cut up testimony. People deserve to be heard. Part of our job, the job of any elected official, is listening to the people you work for. And I think sometimes, after people have been in office for a while, occasionally they already know what the people think. And so you actually have to work at listening. I have a tendency to listen to testimony and take notes. That way I'm able to concentrate on actually what they're saying. And I think there should be a rule that you can play on your smartphones while people are testifying too. That way you can actually listen to what they're really saying. But I've actually been out in neighborhoods listening to people for the last 5.5 months, and I consider that to be a major part of the job of the Assemblyman.
There I am. Right. My name is Mal Tulsi. I'm running for the East Anchorage Assembly seat. I believe that's why I got involved in the campaign and the candidacy, because I felt like I wasn't being heard. I felt like we weren't being heard. So the disconnect with the community and our representatives out there are truly the reasons that I'm involved. And not over the past 5 months, but over the past 9 years, I started in the community. So hearing the voices of the community is why I'm here today. So I'm proud of those things, and moving forward, that's where I'll stand, is always to hear from the community concerns and try to resolve and find solutions to make sure we have in place.
Adam Trombley, running for re-election to the East Anchorage seat. To speak directly to your question about the ordinance itself, one of the things that we looked at when when that came before us is the sign-up sheet. And when we deliberated on that, at the assembly time, is that we have to say, like, we want to make sure that the process is balanced, that people have the ability to testify. At the same time, we have to make sure that the public process doesn't stop business from getting done, such as school bonds. We have to get the school bonds voted on by a specific time. It's possible with the sign-up sheet, for example, that we could crowd it. We can't do business by charter past midnight, and so the school bonds would actually never make it to the ballot. So we're always consistently trying to find that balance. But one of the things that the Citizens Task Force didn't do, or didn't make a recommendation to, but I would like to see, is what Juno does in taking electronic testimony. Now, granted, they're stuck on an island for 90 days, and not all of us can get down there. But there's people disabled who are not able to get down to the assembly chambers due to public transportation. Maybe it's not running at the time that they need it, but they should still have access, and that's something that we will look forward to accomplishing in the next 3 years.
Good evening, everyone. Bruce Doherty, running for South Anchorage Assembly. And to answer the question, I attended one of the task force public hearings, and yes, I entirely agree with all the recommendations. And yes, a mistake was made, and that mistake resulted in a loss of trust and an ability to participate in the public process. And then the public has a right to address its grievances, and it was egregious that public testimony was turned off. And I really think that politicians who don't listen to their constituents do so at their own peril. I promise never to cut off public testimony. And again, I'd like to see all the recommendations are done. Thank you.
I'm Bill Evans, South Anchorage. It's kind of ironic that the Citizens Task Force kind of arose out of what's now an infamous incident where public testimony was cut off. That's certainly a rarity. I mean, more often than not, very important things are dealt with by the Assembly where nobody or very few people are taking the time to come out and testify. I thought what was really good about the Citizens Task Force recommendations is they made a lot of recommendations about how to enhance testimony, how to make it easier and more understandable for people to get involved in the process. I'm a lawyer, and even I find it very daunting at times to figure out, how the system works and how to plug in to what's going on with the Assembly. So I'm definitely in favor of instilling more of the recommendations from the task force, especially to increase public participation.
Thank you. I'm Pete Nolan. Like most of the people up here, I'm 100% in agreement with the task force recommendations. I'd like to see them all put into place, and what happened last year shouldn't have happened. And to the credit of the current assembly, they've done a lot of things to mitigate that happening. But also beyond just the testimony that goes before the assembly, there's another very important thing that happens out in the community called community councils. And having been the president of one, I can tell you that nothing is more daunting than not having the participation of your assembly people at those meetings. And that is a place in which many, many people come to try to get issues in the community, issues that are going on throughout their own community and the rest of the Anchorage community. And if you want to talk about listening to the people, that is a very important place for people to come. So I do agree with the task force, and I'd like to see all of our assembly people at most of the community council meetings. Thank you.
The second question, and we're going to start with Bill Starr. You'll answer and then come this way, and then we'll catch up with that. So. Okay, second question.
My name is Donna Graham. I attend Central Lutheran Church. In 2007, AFACT held a meeting which was attended by 400 members of the public and the mayor. AFACT leaders requested the mayor to create a position of homeless coordinator, answering directly to the mayor. The position was filled in 2009 and successfully coordinated efforts to address homelessness in Anchorage until 2012, when the position was left vacant and its funding was cut from the city budget. Currently, our understanding is that there is no position to address homelessness in the municipality. If elected to office, would you consider reestablishing a homeless coordinator that answers directly to the mayor?
I don't know.
if that's the right answer. I believe that Mayor Sullivan's done a nice job in bringing it into his office, because I think there is no higher office from that. To have perhaps somebody on the 4th or 5th floor that has that clearinghouse, I would hope that there's other mechanisms, including calling the mayor's office and saying, hey, we've got an issue. One of the challenges is, of course, interaction and bringing others into the table. So we have to be careful that we don't centralize it to one expectation. The Homelessness Task Force, I went to several of those meetings throughout the time frame, brought some great solutions. You know, the cold weather policies that came into to have the doors such as these places open up with that. I find those solutions are best when the dialogue is embraced in mass. So I really would rather see maybe a committee or a permanent committee on that. We have several at the assembly level. Even one of those would make sense. I think you get a broader voice with that, again, with the empowerment of the mayor. I think that's a good policy and one that I would want to see him do, along with the committee at the assembly level, if we could do it.
If I were to fund the position or support funding the position, how many of the community organizations would coordinate with them? I would like to look at that, because when I ran for mayor and in the places I've been, I find that if you're going to deal with the homeless problem, that the government's not the best people to do it, because they tend to make a career out of it, and it turns into an industry as opposed to actually helping, because if you solve the problem, you lose your job. At the turn of the century, last century, they started fraternal organizations, and they helped the homeless, and the churches helped the homeless, and they did it quite effectively. And I think that if we had the community participation, that we can actually cure the problem, and I don't think the government will be able to do it for you, because I don't think they're that vested in it.
It's a coordinator position, and the job is coordination. There are a lot of organizations that are doing great work with homeless. However, we know we have a big problem. When the Daily News comes out with my questions on it, you'll see that I did mention the homeless coordinator. The person that had that as their part-time job after 2012 just left the city. So even the person who had it as a part-time job has now left the city. And there's a desperate need, whether or not we do it now or we do it later. There needs to be somebody that's working on that particular task with the ear of the mayor directly. And so I would be in favor of it. And in fact, we talked about trying to add that back in this last budget cycle, but we're unsuccessful. So yes, I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. I hope nobody's offended because I'm not standing up like everybody else. But anyway, one of the things that the mayor did when he took office was hire a homeless coordinator, and I give him a lot of credit for doing that. But then, as was mentioned, the homeless coordinator went to work with the assembly, and the mayor said, well, we have another position that can do that job also. Well, it really didn't happen. And we have tried, myself along with several of my colleagues, tried to reinstate that homeless position, I believe it was twice, because it's a much needed position. When that position did exist, I worked really closely with that person on one of my committees called TBOP, Take Back Our Parks, dealing with homeless situation in the Campbell Park area. And that person did a really, really good job. And I want to see that position come back. And like Mr. Sale said, the person who was supposed to be doing that job is gone. So there's absolutely no one right now that is doing that job. And I look forward to reinstating that position as long as I have enough of my colleagues that support it the way I guide you. Thank you.
Well, I think if you actually are going to succeed in solving the homeless problem, you are going to need a coordinator, someone to put all the agencies together and have a coordinated plan and follow through. It's great to have the mayor involved, but he obviously has other responsibilities besides the homeless. And so a homeless coordinator, that would be their main responsibility, and I believe that would we'd make more progress if we had a homeless coordinator. Also, some of the agencies that have been working have been doing good work. Rural Cap is now in town and they're getting involved. They're thinking about buying the Safe Harbor, not buying it, but taking over the program. And they've got a great reputation in what they've done in rural Alaska, and I think they would be a good agency to help us solve that homeless problem.
You know, with the change of mayors, there's always a change in staffing as well. And with the homeless coordinator, we had a real passionate person in that position, but when it wasn't funded, you lost that passion. And in any position, that passion is very important, to know that someone cares about their position, but it's also great to know that they were homeless as well. So to know that they were concerned always, but now to connect that passion with other great organizations out there to maximize resources for greater impact is always a great need. But every change is trying to be more consistent always in the positions we have available, and hopefully we can keep those positions funded so they can continue to do the work that they've been passionate about. So that's what I would like to see more of, is just continuing the work, but connecting with other partners out there so that the work can be greater, because there are some great organizations doing good things out there.
So from 2009 to 2012, with the homeless coordinator, the point of that job was to start the programs, connect the services to the individuals. At the time when the administration assembly, I don't remember what the vote was, but defunded the position essentially, was that it was felt at the time that those programs and processes which were up and running could now be administered, and they are currently administered by the Department of Health and Human Services. Should we continue to have a coordinator to enhance that? Yes, we probably should. But at the same time, and I don't like using the cliches of private-public partnership, but one of the things that we do see, Anchorage Naval Works doing stuff. They're more, not always necessarily 100% private, but they do receive public dollars. But we see the homeless veteran stuff that they're doing in East Anchorage, Patriot Square. So it's not just government, but it is a coordination between the public and private sector, which a homeless coordinator can always help provide those services.
Well, I had a commanding officer at one time, and he said, Major Doherty, we need to coordinate. When coordination doesn't happen, some things can go wrong. I would support returning the coordinator position to the community staff, and I can tell you firsthand, I worked as a disability adjudicator. We were doing outreach, and then we were working for the state of Alaska through the Social Security Administration. We were doing direct outreach to the homeless population in order to get folks who have mental health issues into the system and provide for some support for those people. But it took me sitting around the table with other agencies who work with the homeless to help to get these people in, which are very difficult sometimes to work with, and to gather the evidence necessary to apply for Social Security disability. So I really think that partnership between government and the private sector is a good thing. I know the folks who are involved with the Hotel and Cabaret Association are helpful in regards to doing outreach and helping them in their endeavors. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill Evans. I don't know that the coordinator would be my top priority. I mean, I think so having a coordinator at City Hall that's focused on homelessness would certainly help. I used to be the chair of the State Mental Health Board, and I feel very strongly that if you want to attack homelessness in any serious way, substance abuse treatment and mental illness treatment are your answers. That's where you're going to have to coordinate your money. Maybe a coordinator could help in that regard, but the priority for funding, I think, to really make a difference has to be in the treatment area. Thank you.
Hi, Pete Nolan. Like, one of the interesting things about going near the end, you hear so many great ideas from people about how to solve the situation. There's been a homeless problem in the city since I grew up here. And the question about what to do about it, I mean, there are so many great organizations, churches, social organizations, Naval Works that I mentioned, that are working in a coordinated effort to attempt to work on the homeless situation in the city. And like, other people have said, I mean, mental health issues are a challenge. substance abuse issues are a challenge about why we have homeless. Some of the homeless situation just has to do with a lack of ability to buy a home or be, have a good job to do that. So there's so many ways that we have to decide how we're going to deal with that issue, that maybe a coordinator position is not a bad idea. And maybe bring all those issues together. Thank you.
Well, I suspect a lot of you, when I think about the homelessness issue in our community, and I think about the homeless people in our community, I think they're, for the grace of God, go high. It's an issue I take very seriously. And I was proud to serve on the homelessness task force, and I want to take a moment to thank the many of you who belong to congregations who have opened your doors to homeless families on a rotating basis throughout our community. I think that was a tremendous step forward, and something that Daryl Hess, our homelessness coordinator, brought to the fore. Getting to the specific question, the Assembly appropriates, the executive branch executes. We can appropriate the money for our homelessness coordinator, but if the executive branch doesn't wish to do it, which only they do not, we can't do anything about it. I think if it is a priority of the administration, I will work with them to address it in every way possible. But I can't promise you that's going to be a homelessness committee.
All right, yeah, I'd like to talk about the issue a little bit here before we talk about the homeless coordinator. It's a pretty complicated issue. The main things affecting it are a big change in our culture here in Alaska from a very rural community where everybody worked together, or a communal society, to one now where it's pretty much dog eat dog and life in the big city, and you better look out for yourself. And so because of that, we have a big population of homeless, and there was an article in the paper today about maybe there's a way to do it, hire some more social workers. I don't know how many social workers does it take to get a homeless person off the street. I think we have to give them a feeling of self-worth. I think we have to give them something else to do. I'd like to see some more urban gardening and actually use the homeless people to help themselves. Urban gardening in Alaska, and also some non-alcoholic venues. All right, thank you.
When we consider that many of the homeless people are youth, I think it's detrimental to our community that we do aid and help as much as we possibly can those that are unfortunate and don't have the resources that we have. As Pat said there, but for the grace of God go I. So yes, with that in mind, I would be in favor.
Okay, we have the third question, and we'll start the third question. You'll be the first answer. I'll go this way.
Ariel Baines from First Covenant Church. The First Covenant Church and other AFACT congregations have heard painful accounts from families whose loved ones can't get substance abuse treatment. Alcohol and drug abuse is a statewide crisis, but Anchorage often takes the brunt of it.
Current treatment services in Anchorage only meet about 30% of the need. Yet, the State House proposed to cut funding for substance abuse treatment services. If elected to office, will you advocate to make funding for substance abuse treatment a top priority in the city's budget request to the state legislature in the fall?
That's a good question. I think it goes back to what we were just talking about a moment ago about homelessness. Again, this issue in regards to what is causing homelessness, what is causing so many of the problems that we have in the city, from crime to family issues and domestic violence, has to do with, of course, substance abuse. Getting treatment for people is very, very important. Obviously, as an assembly person, that would be one of my priorities, to ask the state to fund more of those programs, to get more treatment for people so that we can do something more about this issue rather than just give a lip service. And so that would absolutely be one of my priorities. That has to be something that we work on as a city together in all issues. Substance abuse is a major issue.
Thanks. The issue of substance abuse and mental health illness are linked together. So many of the people that have one have the other problem, co-occurring disorders. I'm a fiscal conservative, and if anybody's followed my campaign at all, I'm all about not spending money. That's sort of what I run on. But there are certain issues that I believe in personal responsibility. I believe people that are homeless and have substance abuse issues, I believe to some level they have to take personal responsibility for their lives. But saying that, I also believe that they have to have the ability, if they want to seek help and seek treatment, that treatment be there. So even though I am fiscally conservative, and I realize that everything I say about spending money, it's easy to say, yeah, let's spend more money on that. But I would favor and I would emphasize finding money for treatment somehow, realizing full well that comes from something else. But I think treatment is important so people can take responsibility for their lives.
I think it's an excellent question. On April 3rd, I will travel to Juneau, either as Assembly Member-elect or a Bruce Doherty private citizen. And during that visit, I will visit my representatives there. And I will advocate, either as a private citizen or as a member, Assembly Member-elect. Advocating for services, grant money, it runs the whole gamut. But I think collectively as a community, we have an opportunity to pick, click, and give to a whole wide variety of nonprofit organizations that provide services. And so, the solution is a collective one. And our community is a very, very generous community. If you've ever been down to Beans, Brother Francis Shelter, I have. Calls have gone out for supplies. I've been there to deliver them. And so it takes each one of us individually, and that collectively we can make a difference. Thank you.
Well, to answer your question specifically, yes. And in fact, the Assembly does. We do support that as a whole. Every year we put together our legislative request packet. And aside from asking for money for roads and bridges, we also ask for requests for legislation. When Senator Murkowski, U.S. Senator Murkowski, was in State Senator Murkowski, she pushed through an alcohol tax increase that the industry supported, with the idea that those dollars would then go towards substance abuse programs. Now, that's never happened, and I'd like to thank Mr. Flynn, because every year he makes sure that our legislative request packet, that the Assembly votes on unanimously and we approve unanimously, that the state legislature takes that tax increase and actually puts it forward to those programs. So I do support that, and I think the Assembly as a whole does too.
I'd say yes. If we don't support treatment, then it can affect us in other ways, whether it's crime. Crime is kind of the other side of these things that it's looking at also prevention opportunities and intervention on how we can catch them before they start. So catching them younger is kind of one thing that, I've been a youth community advocate for quite some time, and really realizing that many of our issues as far as crime and substance abuse can be deterred if we can catch them younger. So that's where a lot of these issues come forth, and we can lower our costs that way. I think it's a lot cheaper to catch them before than after the fact, and it's the same with crime, that if we can find other healthy options for our kids and for the youth and families and more job opportunities, job training, then it really increases their chances of being successful, but it increases their chances of making healthier choices out there.
We do have a substance abuse problem here in Alaska in the city of Anchorage. And the main substance that they're abusing is alcohol. I did a ride-along with the Anchorage Police Department last fall, and 90% at least of the calls that we went to were alcohol related. And the calls that we went to that weren't alcohol related directly, we thought they were probably trying to steal something so they could buy alcohol. So, yes, substance abuse is a problem, and if someone finally decides that they want to quit, that's halfway to succeeding. And so there has to be a facility, a place for them to check in so they can actually succeed. And so, yes, as a member of the Assembly, I would definitely vote from it.
When I moved to Anchorage in 1982, I think the population was maybe 180,000. We have a population now of probably over 300,000 people in our community. And with a growing population and a diverse population, we get the same problems that happened in the lower 48. Our substance abuse issues, not just alcohol, it's drug abuse. And we have a growing population and more problems. And what we need to do is work with our legislatures to find sustainable funding to provide outreach services to help folks within our community who have this illness, because it is certainly an illness, just like mental illness. Substance abuse is an illness, and I'm hopeful, and I will tell you that I will work with our legislators in Juneau, and also on a local level, and folks within the community to find sustainable ways to care for folks in our community that really need our help. Thank you.
You're absolutely right to bring up the substance abuse issue along with the housing issue. We have, as Elby said, we have a huge population now, and our vacancy factor is extremely low. And the cost of housing is extremely high. If you have a minimum wage job, you can't afford a house unless you join up with other people to rent or buy a house behind them. So we've got a huge issue that has to be dealt with. Substance abuse itself, whoever said it was absolutely right about the alcohol tax, has not filtered down to the local level such that we're able to use it for the treatment. The Plethora Center closure is, scaled back, I guess, at the moment, but is not going to help the situation. It's a huge issue that we have to deal with.
Believe it or not, once a long time ago, I was a young lieutenant, and one of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn is you can't help somebody that doesn't want to be helped. And if you look at a lot of different people that have recovered from alcohol, they had to hit rock bottom. And if you enable them enough that they never hit rock bottom, then there's a chance that they'll never recover. And we have funded different types of programs for decades, and it hasn't seemed to change it much. And when I try and solve a problem, I try different approaches, and if those approaches don't work, then I try something else. And I think at some particular time, maybe we should rethink how we're doing it and try something different and see if it works. And if that doesn't work, then try something else and see if it works.
You know, oftentimes, money's not always the answer. And I think the idea that we have to get that. In the question itself, I think, is some solution. It's all of them. All of the parties here, it's electronic inebriated in Anchorage, they're an Alaska citizen as well. We passed a sponsored amendment that added $500,000 state legislative request for increase of the CSP ban, community service patrols. And I hope they get that. The relationship building that you get from an experienced person in my role is just that. It's helpful to have those connections with the Stoltzes and the Fair Clubs and the Saddlers and that. So when you need to sit down to them and say, hey, these are our priorities as a community, I think they become vested in the conversation and know full well that the solution exists. And it is that. You can certainly, package and warehouse and spin back out, but there comes a time when you have to understand their cultural dynamics, where they're from, and start to move that through. That's a bigger problem than Anchorage can do. So, in the question, I think is the solution. Thank you.
In the 15 years in the...
Turn your mic on. Trade mic.
Hear me now. Really hear me now. So with that, after 15 years in the criminal justice field, I can definitely say there is a need working with people, individuals that have substance abuse. There is a struggle there. There is a challenge there. So what we, again, can do to assist, it may not be totally financially, but there are resources out there. And I do agree that it is our responsibility as a community, as constituents, as folks that are in the assembly, to assist those that cannot help themselves.
I'm all for substance abuse treatment. At the same time, I'm for health care for all. And so I think we should pressure our federal government and the country to have actually health care for all. Medicaid and Medicare is probably the lowest overhead system anywhere, way cheaper than the insurance program. And yet we refuse to expand that. If we have expanded health care, it should cover everybody with medical treatment and substance abuse treatment. I think it's more the purpose of the city to stop promoting alcohol in these events that go on, and like I say, promote some non-alcoholic venues, and then provide health care. I know there's other programs out there for most people to find help if they really need it.
Appreciate the questions. About 6 years too late. I've been doing this every year in the Assembly. I thank Mr. Trombley for his acknowledgement that I have had this issue in front of the legislature for 6 years. 50 cents of every alcohol tax dollar goes to treatment. The other 50 cents disappears. Why is that? It's not because of me. I was down in Juneau 2 weeks ago advocating for this. It's because of all of us. Until we stand up and say, those dollars go to treatment, they won't. And we'll have the same problem. We'll have the same question next year.
Okay, we're getting close to wrapping up our questions. We'll have one more question starting here. Give everyone 30 seconds. Tell us in 30 seconds why we should vote for you. And be your most convincing and sincere, and why should we? Why should we vote for you?
Wow. Why should you vote for me? If you're from South Anchorage, well, if you're not from South Anchorage, you can. So you should vote for me if you're from South Anchorage, because I represent a couple of different things. I say this all the time, but there's 2 hats the Assembly wears. There's a hat that goes downtown and takes care of many of the issues that we're talking about here this evening, and then there's the hat the Assembly person wears, where he is out in the district and involved in the community, going to community council meetings, knowing about all the issues that are out there, understanding where he lives, and I'm that person in South Anchorage. That's why, if you're from South Anchorage, you should vote for me. Thank you.
Thanks. I would vote for me because I have experience in different areas of city government. I've been involved in Anchorage community, the business community, and other things for a long time. I think I have the skill set and the experience that would do a good job on the Assembly. I would try to just be straightforward with you. I'll tell you exactly what I believe. You may not like it, but at least you'll know where I stand on any issue, and that's why I think you should vote for me. Thank you.
Well, Bruce Doherty, the third and final candidate for South Anchorage Assembly. I come to the table with 28 years of military experience. I recently retired from the military with the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, and I want to take that 28 years of military experience and put it to work for the people of South Anchorage. And concurrently, I have a 22-year career working with the state of Alaska in a whole wide variety of health and social service programs, and I have a great understanding of the needs of this community. And so please vote for me on April 1st. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
3 years ago, I promised I'd do 3 things: create jobs, create a community plan for East Anchorage, and keep the growth of government down. 3 years later, I've accomplished all 3. In a day and age when politicians will tell you something, knowing flat out that they're lying to you and they'll never do it, I can actually say that 3 years ago, what I promised, I've actually delivered.
I've been fighting for this community for nearly 10 years now, since I finished up my career with the Arizona Cardinals. I realized someone helped me, so I wanted to do that when I came back, and believed that I could. I didn't go to school to learn how to do these things in the community. I just jumped in because I believe I could. And even moving forward now, I want to do more. And so that's where I stand now, and hopefully I'll have your support in trying to do more. I believe you guys trusted me in moving forward and wanting to make more impact in this community. And truly appreciate this opportunity to be here.
Well, I have 15 years owning and operating my own small business. I also served 2 terms in the Alaska State Legislature. So I have political experience and life experience. I believe I'm the most qualified candidate in this race for East Anchorage Assembly, and I would appreciate your vote.
Public service is my business, and I'm honored that I've invested in this community for the last 31 years. In the last 6 years, I've been an elected official. I worked hard for my constituents. I work hard for everybody in this community because I have every single email that comes from all over this community. I want to continue working hard for you because it's my passion helping people navigate through government and find ways to solve problems. And I know that you can't solve every single problem, but I listen and I'm here for you and I want to work for you for another few years. Thank you.
I'm Tim Steele, West Anchorage, and I was elected last year to a one-year term, and I'm back now for 3. I was on the school board for 9 years. I know how to make decisions. I have a diverse background, and I care, and that's why I want to have you vote for me. Voting is open now at the library and downtown.
Most of the people up here have said that they could support most of the programs that you want. Most of the indication of our future is we're going to be losing dollars. You can expect a 30% bump in your property tax within the next 5 to 7 years. I really think that you need somebody that will look at things differently with a new perspective and has the ability to do more with less, because we're going to have to do more with less. Nothing in the future says that we're going to get more money.
I started as a community council president, planning and zoning, onto the assembly for my 3rd term. I'm asking for the vote from Chugiak Eagle River because I'm not challenged enough yet. I think that the idea the topics are getting more serious, they're more volatile, and my reputation of taking those on, whether that be the mayor, fellow assembly member, or whatever, I think is what's necessary in the debate and the dialogue, and then you move that to solution. I think I feel comfortable with the dialogue, I feel comfortable with that, and I'm ready to move the solution. Thank you.
I have a little list, so bear with me. I was born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska. I grew up in Northeast Muldoon, where my parents still live, so I still have that connection with our District 2 encompasses Eagle River, Clutna, J Bear, Northeast Muldoon, so I would embrace all the constituents. I'm approachable, I'm accessible, I will listen, I love to listen, I'm capable of listening. I want to advocate for our constituents, and I love people, and I'm a hard worker.
All right, well, I got a sappy saying for you here. Conserve energy, vote Martinson. I've spent a lot of time out in the bush, and I've seen a big change from Alaskans being experts in energy conservation to more consumption. You probably saw that in Nome. And so I'd like to see a little more energy methods coming to Anchorage and basically improving the mass transit and making this a more livable city. Yeah, I think this great opportunity as long as we understand northern climate.
Well, my name is Patrick Flynn, as I introduced myself, and I asked you to vote for me simply because I love this town and I want to make it a better place. I was born and raised here, raised my family here. I'm matriculated across the street at Chugiak Elementary School. This is the place I want to be. I could be anywhere in the world. This is where I want to be, and I want to make it a better community for all of you and all of us. Thank you.
Well, that ends it as far as the questions on that. Could we give our candidates a round of applause?